What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show, powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, one of the greatest sharpshooters of all time. But enough about his cornhole career. Let's talk some hoops.
Well, I had some cornhole success this weekend, too. Cornhole, big game on the Jersey Shore beaches for these holiday weekends, Adam. So I was holding court out there.
Do you have a reputation now on the shores? Guys come from miles away to challenge the GOAT.
People know. They understand if they're in the vicinity, they could get called out. So you might see people setting up a little further away from us. They don't want to get dragged into that, embarrassed in front of the whole family on a holiday. It's not fun.
I love it. I love it. The intimidating beach sports of one Tim Legler. We have a jam-packed show today, Legs. I mean, we will go away for a weekend and a bunch of stuff happens, including some summer league games. VJ Edgecombe made his summer league debut, looked really good. Dalton Knecht, not so much. We'll talk about both of those guys at the end of the show. But we have a Cam Whitmore trade that's very fascinating. We have Bradley Beal maybe getting bought out. Big Val does not want to come to the Denver Nuggets. He wants to go to Europe despite being traded and having 2 years left on his deal. But we're going to start with a trade that happened just this morning. The Los Angeles Clippers, Miami Heat, and Utah Jazz participated in a three-way trade that sent John Collins to the Clippers, Norman Powell to the Miami Heat, and the Utah Jazz, Kevin Love, who's expected to be bought out, Kyle Anderson, who's expected to stay, and a second-round pick, your favorite, the LA Clippers 2027 second-round pick. I don't know what the Jazz are doing. We'll save this for the end. I mean, other than tanking. Let's start in the middle there with the Clippers. Clippers added Brook Lopez, and they added John Collins, two front court players. They lose to the Nuggets in the playoffs. Obviously, you have to battle against Joker in that series. They bolster their front court, but Norman Powell had a great year for them last year. So they lose some of the scoring punch, but they get a little bit maybe more defensive-minded, a little bit more well-rounded. What do you think of this move?
I love it, really. I mean, I think that they're a team that does need some additional size and more importantly, I think athletic ability at their 4 and 5 position. Lopez more of a guy that can stretch the floor, but Collins is a guy that can give you that like vertical threat. He's, I think, a guy that still has a lot to prove in a winning situation, in a good situation. He's been in Utah. People haven't been paying attention to really what kind of numbers he was putting up out there. They're in a different mindset. They're not necessarily trying to win games. Tough spot for a veteran player to be in that still has, a lot left in his game. And I think he does. I like this for the Clippers, and I especially like it for Miami. I mean, what they picked up, Norman Powell just had the best year of his career. So you bring in another guy that can score off the dribble, that can score off the catch and shoot. I think a good pairing with Tyler Hero.
So before we get to the Heat, I want to stay on the Clippers. It might be easier just to do this one team at a time. And I'm going to stick with the Clippers here because, all right, number one, they bolstered their front court, as you just mentioned. And they have 3 true bigs now. Oh, yeah, I love it. We got 3 true bigs. You're all good. He's got a take. He's got some takes on the Clippers front court. What's going on, big guy?
Hey, say hi. Say hi, all NBA.
Our
podcast.
First cameo.
Yeah, he's looking at himself. All right, you got to go, mommy. You got to go, mommy.
I love it,
man. See you in a minute, buddy. Daddy's got to work. You never know what's going to happen. You forget to lock the door, right? All right.
I love it, man. So they'll bolster the front court. They now have 3 guys to battle Joker. Collins probably too undersized, but we've seen small guys like that before. But the second part is the most interesting part here for me, Legs. And that is that last year, Kawhi Leonard played a lot of power forward on the offensive end.
Yeah.
And James Harden played a lot of power forward on the defensive end, just because every time they had to go small, it's like, all right, Harden, where do we stick him? Just put him on a big guy. He can guard the post, but that's still taxing. So now this frees those 2 guys up. So I think those 2 things, bolster your front court for the guys like Joker in the West, and then allow some relief defensively for guys like Harden having to guard bigs. I think those two things are
Yeah.
actually huge wins.
Oh, I totally agree. And it's interesting. More and more teams, when we evaluate these moves, it's amazing how now the difference is teams adding size to their front court. And it was the opposite for a long time.
Yep.
More and more teams now understanding it. In fact, if you go look right now at the Clippers depth chart, if you pull it up, Kawhi Leonard is still listed as their starting four. Like they got three wings, Kawhi Leonard and James Harden.
Yeah.
And so you look at Zubac, Kawhi Leonard at the four, and then three guards. So now you got Brook Lopez, John Collins added to that depth chart, and both of those guys are going to play heavy minutes. It absolutely gives you the luxury and the advantage of playing different types of lineups, and I think that's the key for the Clippers. There's no doubt this is a very relevant team in the Western Conference, but they didn't have enough. They've gone out and they have given themselves a lot more depth, and they've given themselves the ability to give you different looks, which I think is what this league is looking at more and more. You can't have one style or one size or one profile that you play. You've got to be able to mix and match depending on who you have to match up against. And that's what this is about for the Clippers.
And the versatility offensively is interesting because Zubac is elite in the short roll. He can make plays. He can post up out of the short roll, like just kind of seal his guy and catch deep. He can pass. He can offensive rebound. So he's a good short roll guy. You can throw him the lob, but I think he's best as a short roll guy. You can throw it to the post. Brook Lopez is pick and pop. He shoots the 3-point shot really well. He's going to extend out to the 3-point line and even beyond. He loves the deep three. And then you have John Collins, who's a roll threat. So now you have three guys, and I think they actually fit side by side. I'm not sure what Collins will look like next to Zubac. That I think it'll be good. I don't know if it'll be elite. But now you have the ability to put him next to Brook Lopez, who spaces the floor and you run pick and roll with a lob threat, and that works as well. So to me, I think that's part of what makes them interesting is no matter what coverage you throw at them, they have a guy they can throw out there and say, okay, we're going to run this type of spread pick and roll.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think I'm intrigued by this. Look, we already know, what a proven commodity Brook Lopez is with his role in the league. He's been on really good teams. He's been on teams that made deep postseason runs. He's got a lot of that. John Collins had a taste of that in Atlanta, not a ton. He didn't have great playoff success as a player. So, and then he goes to Utah and you kind of forget about him. I am very intrigued to see, because the guy's still only 27 years old. I'm very intrigued to see, what that little extra bounce to their front court gives them. I think it's just something that they lacked and something that they really needed. So now they feel a little bit more complete than they did at the end of the year. The biggest thing coming out of last season for me, was the fact that Kawhi Leonard finished the season.
Yeah.
And that was like the number one thing you take going in to the offseason. Now, what are you going to do to improve your team and to add depth? Losing Norman Powell hurts the year that he had. I mean, they wouldn't have been in the position they were without the year Norman Powell had, without question. All right, you lose him. It's a tough loss. They've gone in a different direction. They're more about adding size and depth to their front court, and they think that's more important in the Western Conference than having, another wing or two guard that can score 20 a night.
Yeah. Norman Powell was great for him, and now he goes to Miami, which is kind of an interesting fit. We weren't sure what they were going to be able to pull off. They're rumored to be in the Bradley Beal hunt. Maybe they still are if he gets bought out. We'll talk about that in a second, although I think not. But he was looking for an extension. I don't think the Clippers wanted to give it to him. To your point, he did have the best career, but it's late in his career. So the best year of his career is kind of strange this late. But the Miami Heat can extend him at $28.7 million if they choose to do that. And it still gives them flexibility in 2027, which is something I think they want. And now they have an interesting team, Legs. It's not one I would have designed. Tyler Hero, Norman Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Kel'el Ware, Bam Adebayo. That's kind of an interesting five. It's not the most like your defense is in your front court, not your back court, but you have a ton of scoring in your back court. It's interesting. It's the Eastern Conference. I don't know if you said you loved it. I guess I get it because I don't know where they were going, but I don't know what this team is.
Well, look, relative to what they just gave up, which was basically nothing, to bring in a guy that just had the best year of his career. And when you look at Miami offensively, they had virtually nobody outside Tyler Hero that you can give the ball to in a high ball screen to create anything. Yeah. And Bam Adebayo can create a little bit, but not like that. He's more of a guy you give the ball to in the mid-range area of the floor at the elbows, and he's a very good passer for a big man. But I'm talking about a guy that out on the perimeter causes communication issues for defenses, causes blitzes, causes all kinds of things to have to take place because he can pull from anywhere. They had one guy that was able to do that in Tyler Hero. Now they've gone out and they've added another guy in that vein. And Norman Powell can do that. He's a guy that's just can heat up at any time. And I think it's for Miami and what they needed just to make their offense more viable every night. It was critical. It just felt so stale and so limited offensively with the team that they had. This gives them some pop that they desperately need.
Yeah. I think they'll be fun. That's a fun backcourt. Tyler Hero, Norman Powell, Wiggins even. Like, that's a fun backcourt that has some stuff to it. And in the East, maybe that's good enough. I mean, we've seen the Miami Heat do this every year for the last 6, where in the regular season, okay, they're a 6, 7, 8 seed, but then in the playoffs, they're a tough out. I think this team tracks with that. I look at it and I go, I wouldn't put it together personally, but it's going to be good enough to stay afloat. And if it all comes together for them in April, they're going to be one of those tough out teams again. And I think that's exactly how it is. And then Utah has not made sense for the last several years for me. They are a rare example of a team that is doing a very slow rebuild. They get rid of Collins, which he was, I get it, that he wasn't fitting a timeline of fit questions, all these different things. And now you just add, you're going to be the worst team. I think Utah's setting up for the number 1 pick next year because they're going to be bad. They cleared room for their young guys to play, but it seems like a weird route. All the guys they traded to not get back better draft capital, basically to get Kyle Anderson and a 2nd-round pick. It just seems like a weird use of what was supposed to be a valuable contract in Collins when it was signed a few years back.
No, I completely agree. I think that a lot of times when teams go into this mode, it's so much easier to recognize right away. And it's really just completely stripping it down immediately. It's not really what they've done. So look, if you're the Utah Jazz or you're a fan of that team or you're somebody who just wants to watch the Jazz, there's only a couple of reasons to watch them this year. You want to see the development, some of these younger guys, Ace Bailey, Walter Clayton Jr., like those are the guys that I want to see. Some of their younger vets, I've kind of got a pretty good feel for what they are and what the upside is, and it's not going to be enough for that team. So let's see what some of these new guys that they're adding to the mix, what their ceiling looks like. But I agree, it's not the typical pattern that you see from teams that want to completely strip it down and start over with an obvious plan in place. This has sort of been a trickle-down effect over the last couple of seasons to get us where we are now.
They have Ace Bailey. They have Walter Clayton Jr. They might get a number 1 or number 2 pick next year. That's a nice, solid foundation. But this has been several years in the making, and it almost feels like this is year 1. And that's the part that's weird to me is they just have had these assets that you thought, okay, they're going to tear it down. They're going to tear it down. This feels like the first year where it's truly torn down, and they've been terrible for a couple years in a row now. So a very slow play from Utah. I don't know that I fully trust the process that they're going through, but we'll have to wait and see. And then lastly, in segment 1 here, very strange situation with my Denver Nuggets. They traded Dario Saric for Jonas Valanciunas a week ago, right on the first day of free agency. Look, this was a win for Denver no matter what because they needed off of the Saric contract. But they needed, in my opinion, to be a true contender, you need someone to spell Jokic. He cannot play 37 minutes a game, again, 75 games a year, carry Denver the load. So you get a true backup center in Jonas Valanciunas. But wait, there's a report that he wants to go to Panathinaikos in Greece and is willing to forego his entire NBA salary in order to make it happen. This was news to the Denver Nuggets. What was your initial response? And this is still playing out, by the way. What was your initial response when you saw that Val got traded and then didn't want to go to Denver?
Well, I was not surprised that he got traded. I mean, he's kind of in that category now, a guy that's going to probably bounce around the rest of his career in the NBA. So I wasn't surprised by that. I understood why Denver would want him. I was shocked when I found out that he might not be coming. Like, I don't know what that's all about and how that wasn't vetted a little bit better on the part of the Nuggets ahead of time. They just made the assumption that, there's nothing else going on the side. We trade for him. He's going to want to come in and play. I don't understand why he wouldn't want to go to that situation with what Denver just did this offseason, which I have loved. And I think what it does to keep them highly relevant in the Western Conference going forward, why wouldn't Valanciunas want to be a part of that? When you take a look at, being in Sacramento and bringing in Washington and being in New Orleans, like, why wouldn't you want to go to Denver and have an opportunity to be on a team that's going to contend? Because I think Denver will. So do you have any idea what's going on there?
So it is strange that Denver didn't have the intel. I'm not sure if anybody did. Would Sacramento have done this deal if they had the intel? Because they did the deal for salary dump purposes to clear the way for Dennis Schroeder. But if he wanted to forego his contract and move to Europe, that's salary dump without having to do anything. And it's even more of a salary dump. So I don't think Sacramento or Denver saw this coming. And what I've heard, and everything right now is sort of rumor. I don't want this to be a report. This is the things that I've heard and some of the stuff that's out there is that he wants to be in Europe for family reasons. His family is ready to be back in Europe. He wants to be back in Europe. So this has nothing to do with the Denver situation in particular. This was something he wanted. And, there's also a report that his European agent, he's got two agents, one here in the US, one out in Europe. His European agent maybe had been trying to broker this secretly behind the scenes. And that's part of what caused the confusion. But here's the thing I wonder about it is, and what bothers me about it, obviously I'm a Denver guy and I think Valanciunas completes their roster. It seems like this happens nonstop now. Guy signs a contract and then 6 months later wants out of that contract or wants to force his way to here or there. And that's the thing that I think is so strange is it's almost like a have your cake and eat it too situation where the deal is you get guaranteed money. Not other leagues get it. You get guaranteed money. You sign a deal. But then if you just can force your way out or to another location or this or that, I just don't know how teams maneuver through this. When a player can say, oh, yeah, you traded for me, but oh, by the way, I'm not coming. I'm just going to go to Europe.
It's really, really difficult, man. And I think here's what's changed. A few things. First is just the mentality of a player that they understand it's possible now for them to dictate where they end up by just making threats or saying that, you won't show up or saying, in some cases, when a guy's talked about being traded, you say, well, I'm not going to resign there. Right. And so that scares teams off. So then you end up, here's my little short list, make it happen. It's amazing the way all of the leverage has been taken away from the team that has your rights. That used to be, they controlled you. They could trade you where they wanted to. And most players just kind of accepted where they went for the most part. That's just not the case anymore. So there's a lot of this stuff can get tricky if you don't know the mentality of the player. I was wondering if, he started basically pretty much every year of his career except this past year. This was like the first year he came off the bench the vast majority of this season, but for the most part, it's been a starter, and he's 33 years old. It's not like he's 38, hanging on here at the end and wants to play 12 minutes a game. I was wondering if it was like, hey, man, he wants to be a starter again in this league. I didn't know if that played into it. Obviously, you're backing up Jokic. They're not going to play together very much at all, if at all. This is not that situation where we have all that versatility playing two bigs because these guys can jump out of the perimeter and guard guys. No, you're going to play one of these guys at a time. How many minutes does that leave for Valanciunas? So I didn't know if that played into it. But I also thought, man, you'd think he would jump at the opportunity. Yeah. To be on a team that really has a chance to make serious noise and go a long way and have a deep playoff run in the West. But again, who knows, man? Like there's a lot that goes into these decisions when players want to end up somewhere else. He's had a lot of internal conversations with his team, his agent, his family, whoever else. He knew where his mind was at, but apparently the Nuggets didn't.
And this is where I agree with you. This is a contending team, which he has not been on at any point in his career, a true contending team. And it is a big role, even though it is not a starting role. To your point, that's very important. He goes to Europe. He might be the best center in the Euro League, which, by the way, I have a lot of respect for the Euro League. I love all these other leagues in basketball. I'm not one of these guys that thinks everything is just the JV of the NBA. It's a good league over there. But he would have a meaningful role because I think if Denver doesn't get him and if it resolves in him going to Europe and Denver doesn't find a competent backup center, which, by the way, it's not like there's a huge market for them. Al Horford, maybe. Vucevic, maybe, if you make a trade. Goga Batazde, I know Nuggets fans want, maybe, if you could pull that trade. If Denver doesn't get one of those guys, I think that their title window is smaller because they need somebody to give Jokic relief. So to me, you're right, it's not a starting job, but it's a very important one on a team that is trying to make a big splash. And that's why I just can't wrap my head around it.
I'm with you, and I think it's a shame for Denver if this doesn't work out for them because I think he really was a really good piece, man. He was part of the totality of the picture of their offseason. It wasn't just the fact that Bruce Brown was coming back, which was a big one. This was like another piece of that. Like you look at it in the totality of what they were doing. That's why you love Denver's offseason. So it takes a hit if they don't work this out. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm interested.
Do you think, and this is my last question, then we'll move on, but do you think, one thing I hear Nuggets fans say, well, if he doesn't want to be here and you force him, because Denver at the end of the day holds the cards. They can say you have to play here, and or else you're not going to be able to go and play for Panathinaikos. Denver can hold those cards. Do you think if they force him to play, it's the type of thing that could bleed into the locker room? Because I am of the opinion that players have business dealings in the offseason, and whatever happens, it doesn't always necessarily have to bleed into the locker room. It certainly can, but that most guys understand business is business, locker room is locker room. So do you think it would be a distraction if Denver said, no, we traded for you, you're coming here?
I don't think it would be. In most cases, Adam, I think it's a terrible idea to have a guy and force his hand and force him to come play if he's made it clear he doesn't want to be there. I always think it's a mistake typically. I think this is one of the rare exceptions because of the environment that's going to be in place when he gets there. It's going to be pretty easy, I think, in how healthy the environment is because of Jokic and the way he plays and what they're playing for. And just like, it's a great organization, great city. Like, I think it's actually one of those where he could reluctantly be forced there and then buy in because it's going to be a fun experience for him, and winning is fun in this league, and he's going to have value, and the crowd's going to react to him for what he gives them. So I think this is that rare exception that I think he could get there, and maybe it's rough in the beginning. I think it could be smoothed out over time, but typically I am not in favor of forcing guys to come in if that's what they've made it clear. But I'm also not in favor necessarily just giving them what they want and sending them wherever they want in a trade either. I don't think any player should have that kind of power. There's a reason the teams have control. They're the ones that are paying you, so they have to have more leverage ultimately. But it's really flipped over the last decade or so. The players have more leverage than ever before, to the point where more and more guys are ending up in exactly the situation that they want, and they're doing it, at the expense of the franchise that was trying to bring them in with open arms. It's happening more and more. So I'm typically not in favor of forcing the issue. I think it leads to bad things, and you were warned about it. The guy says it, believe him. In this case, I think it could be different. I think he could buy in once he gets there.
Well, that's the part you just said right there. I think the NBA is probably very invested in how this plays off, because it's bad for the league if teams can make a trade and then that player say, no, I'm not doing it. It's bad for the league. They sign contracts, and the league is not going to want to go in those waters. So this has ripple effects, not just for Denver this year, but I think around the league and how these things are handled, operated, and what you don't want this to be the status quo, where all of a sudden this is a thing that happens somewhat regularly. We'll see how it all plays out. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, Bradley Beal is reportedly going to be bought out of his contract, his $110 million contract, and stretched over 5 years for the Suns. And Cam Whitmore goes to the Washington Wizards, plus VJ Edgecombe makes a great debut. All that on the other side. First, let me tell you guys about the Hall of Fame app. Have you guys been using this for your baseball bets? Maybe you have for your summer league bets. You had VJ Edgecombe. I think he was like 17 and a half in his debut. Blew that out of the water. Well, the Hall of Fame app can help you tailor your parlays or whatever bets it is, because sometimes you make your bets because you just have a feeling about a guy. But a better way to do it is to try to look at recent statistical trends, matchup trends, and try to get a sense of what the numbers say is going to be a good bet. The Hall of Fame app is here to help with that, because they were assembled by some data nerds who just happen to be giant sports fans, who put together a great app that allows you to look side by side for matchups, side by side for prop bets, player bets, game bets, and tell you what the trends are saying, what the numbers are saying about the bet you're wanting to make. They use historical data, matchup grades, leg correlation, and a lot of useful tools. And what I love about it is you build your parlay or make your bets or kind of select what you want to do in the Hall of Fame app, and then automatically and seamlessly transfer it over to your betting app of choice, like, for example, FanDuel. So you could do all of your work in one app, and you don't have to redo all of your work in the other one. It just helps you make an informed decision and then transfer it over for quick continuation. It's got a 4.9 rating in the App Store and over 6,000 5-star reviews. It's safe to say the Hall of Fame app has already helped a lot of people win smarter. And right now they have this great deal. For a limited time only, our listeners can get a 7-day free trial. 7 days. You can get through the whole first week of Summer League without paying a penny. But they also are giving 50% off their first month when you use our promo code ALLNBA, all one word, ALLNBA at checkout. Just download the Hall of Fame app on iOS or Android and visit the Hall of Fame, HOF.com. Enter that code ALLNBA and you're all set. Also want to tell you guys about Monarch Money. Finances can be messy and confusing. Monarch Money acts like your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control so you can stop earning and start growing. It's more than your average budgeting app, although it's also that. So first, just on the budgeting part, you want to know how much you're spending on groceries or eating out or whatever it is, maybe going to games, taking vacations, whatever it is, you want to kind of get a sense of where am I spending my money? Where can I tighten the budget a little bit? Where can I expand it a little bit? It has a great budgeting tool for you, but it's more than that. It's also a complete financial command center for all of your accounts, investments, and goals. So when you have investments in a bunch of different places, maybe you have a 401k over here, IRA over there, you've invested in some Bitcoin, whatever it is you have going on, Monarch Money makes it easy for you to kind of check in on all of your investments in one place so you can keep better track of what things are doing and where your money is going. Start managing the finances to build the life you actually want. It's that time. It's summer. It's time for people to kind of start resetting goals and thinking through what they're trying to do. Check out the app. It's really useful. Get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use that code ALLNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off of your first year at monarchmoney.com with code ALLNBA, ALLNBA. All right, back here, segment 2 with Tim Legler. Legs, the other story, and we've been covering the story for, it seems like, for 2 years. The worst trade over the last couple of years, Bradley Beal going to the Phoenix Suns on that huge contract. Didn't work out for them. They've traded Kevin Durant. And now, according to Mark Stein, Bradley Beal's team is actively exploring his options in free agency because he expects to be bought out. Our own Gerald Bourguet, who covers the Suns for PHNX, says the buyout is imminent and will have $96.9 million of his $110 million contracts stretched over 5 years. It means he's given up about $14 million, a little under $14 million. But stretching it out over 5 years, it's kind of crazy. We're seeing these buyouts, these huge buyouts, $110 million bought out and then stretched and kept on the cap sheet for 5 years in a smaller dose. It gives the Suns some flexibility, obviously, in the short term. But first of all, him getting bought out, are you surprised just seeing these guys get bought out for $100 million?
Well, yes. Are you kidding me? Yes. It's insane, man. It's unprecedented. It's not necessarily the healthiest thing for the league, in my opinion. And I look at the Suns, Adam. You look at Bradley Beal buyout. How much dead money do they already have in coaching contracts? Right? They fired Frank Vogel and Mike Budenholzer. They fired both of those guys after one season. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they both got 4 or 5 years guaranteed, in that $8 to $10 million a year range for 2 coaches in a row. And you fired after one season, and now you do this to Bradley Beal. It's like incredible. The amount of money you're willing to eat when you are basically saying, oh, that was a mistake. And now we're just going to go ahead and eat it. Bradley Beal created this situation because for some unknown reason, he had a no trade clause. I say for some unknown reason. There were 2 of them in the league last year. 2.
Right.
LeBron James and Bradley Beal. Yeah. And I've said from the beginning, I personally don't think any player should have a no trade clause. I don't think any organization should ever give a player a no trade clause. You are the organization. You draft the guy, you hire the guy, you pay the guy. You should control that last bit of leverage, that if it gets to that point, you're able to trade a player. And so somehow Bradley Beal ended up with one of these, and that is why we're in this situation, obviously, because they would have traded him last season if he would have waived that, and he chose not to. So now here we find ourselves with Bradley Beal getting all this money to just go home, and now we speculate on where his next landing spot will be.
It's wild. They have $40 million to Bud, $20 million to Monty Williams, and now reportedly $97 million to Bradley Beal. That's a lot of money for guys that will not impact your team ever again.
Man,
it's kind of insane, man. That's kind of insane. But now you look at teams that might pick him up, and here's a couple lists. I mean, of course, anything could happen. And I'll tell you this. This is my... we used to have a couple of newsbreakers, Woj, Shams, a couple guys around. When Woj got out of the business, I feel like fewer stories have leaked. And right now, there's a lot of trades that were reported but have not been completed which is very strange. It
Yeah.
feels like there's some deals that could happen today, tomorrow, in the coming days that might blow some people away. I mean, we'll still see what's going on with LeBron. You know, there's different things. So when I say these places are connected to him, anything can happen, but these ones are interesting to me. Number one, Milwaukee. They have a talent deficit around Giannis. And right now they have Kevin Porter Jr., who actually had a good year with them last year. Gary Trent Jr. had nice little playoffs. But Bradley Beal is probably the star, like the headline star if he goes to Milwaukee. It makes sense. I don't know if that's where he wants to be, but it makes sense that Milwaukee would have interest in trying to pick him up if he clears waivers.
Oh, there's no doubt. They'd be at the top of the list for me. And here's the thing. I don't know how this is going to work now. Bradley Beal, he's already gotten all this guaranteed money. He's going to get his money. Does that mean now that Bradley Beal would be willing to go somewhere and sign for veterans minimum? Because if he's willing to not make money a factor, he can literally pick any team in the league.
Yeah.
That's got room for him. Like assuming no team has just this glut of guys at the 2-3 spot of high volume minute guys, high volume shot takers, where you're just going, okay, what's the role going to be for him? Or he wouldn't be happy. He can literally pick any situation. And that is a pretty good one. There's a desperate need for what he would bring to the Milwaukee Bucks. You lose Lillard, you're trying to figure out how you're going to replace all of that. It's 24, 25 a night on the perimeter from deep. You still have Giannis there. So this is a team that I think could use him. But I guess what I don't know are all of the details or ramifications of what Bradley Beal is going to have to be paid and who's got that kind of money. If that's not a factor and he can hand pick it, maybe there's even a more attractive situation for him where he thinks he could actually have a chance to play in the finals or win a title this year. I'm not sure that would happen in Milwaukee.
Well, in Milwaukee, it might, because again, you're in the Eastern Conference and you have Giannis. And so you're already can talk yourself into we're in the mix, right? Anytime you have Giannis. And the thing about Milwaukee that's different than everybody else is he is the clear number 2 there, in my opinion. He's the clear guy. The marquee, again, is Beal and Giannis. And if you're going there to rehab value or to get a new contract down the line or whatever it is you're going there for, you can compete. You're a star. The ball's in your hands. And I don't know that some of these other teams can, because the next team, for example, that I have here was rumored. The Clippers just opened up a spot with Norman Powell going. The Clippers are always in the game for star hunters. But to me, that one doesn't make sense because he just was a third option. He didn't like it in Phoenix. He didn't get the ball that much. If you go to the Clippers, isn't it the exact same scenario? Does he fit with James Harden, Kawhi Leonard? He's clearly the number 3 guy there. So that's the next one, the Clippers. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think necessarily as much now that would be something that would be as attractive to Bradley Beal. For the reasons that you just mentioned, another team that was talked about all last year that wanted him, and it seemed like he was trying to force his way there if he could have, was Miami. That didn't come to fruition. Does the Norman Powell situation change Miami's outlook on trying to acquire Bradley Beal? Because I think there was mutual interest there throughout the season last year, but Bradley Beal, wouldn't waive his no trade. I'm not sure a deal would have been consummated anyway, but it was rumored that that's where Bradley Beal wanted to end up. Well, now he'd be in a situation he could just go there, take less money and just go join the Heat if that's where he wanted to go. But I wonder if the Norman Powell situation would make that less attractive to Bradley Beal as well.
Yeah. San Antonio is another one that's been rumored. I mean, they were going to get aggressive this summer. I don't know if what you can call what they've done so far aggressive, but Beal, that's another spot where he would be on the marquee. I mean, he shares it with Fox, who's very dynamic. You get Beal, obviously you have Wemby. That would be a weird but interesting fit for him.
Well, I don't know though, because I look at them and I go, okay, you've got De'Aaron Fox. You've also got the rookie of the year, Stephon Castle, who plays guard. And you just drafted Harper. So what? Yeah. And you got Wembanyama. So the time frame for what they're trying to accomplish, I don't know if that fits as well with Bradley Beal. And you've got these young guys. You don't want to stunt their development. There's no telling how good that guard situation could become in San Antonio pretty quickly. Do you want to stall that to bring in a veteran guy that wants the ball and wants minutes? I don't know. I don't know if I'd be interested in that if I was San Antonio.
The last one I have here is Golden State Warriors. And this one's interesting to me for this reason. The Warriors haven't done much this offseason. And they're a team that you looked at and say, okay, they're old. They got to make some maneuvers. And when I say there's a lot of like trades that haven't been completed and it seems like there's some things holding up, I look at Golden State and say, what's going on over there? What are they doing? Maybe this was one of the dominoes they knew was coming. But if he went there, does that make sense? I mean, they shoot a lot of threes. He spaces the floor.
Yeah, that makes sense. Stylistically, I think it's something he'd love and he would relish. And there's a need. They just need scorers. They need talent. They need guys that can put the ball in the basket, period. Particularly with the age of Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler. Those guys are going to miss time throughout the season. So it gives you another guy there. I think that would fit him well stylistically. I think he'd be probably happy playing there. Another team I thought about, what about a team like Minnesota?
Ooh, interesting.
Because here's the thing, like he still does like playing some point. They didn't answer that need. So
Right.
he can have the ball. So I'm playing with Anthony Edwards with the ball in his hands. He can also, when Anthony Edwards is off the floor, you can run more of your offense through him. He certainly would be the most proven scorer on their roster if Anthony Edwards is not on the floor. They don't really have guys that you label as pure three-point shooters. They've got streaky guys. I looked at that team and I said, maybe that's a situation that he would find interesting. They've been to 2 back-to-back conference finals as well. And then they run into a buzzsaw where they don't have enough. So that was another one that just crossed my mind.
That's an interesting one too. And I think he's still the marquee if you go to Minnesota, right? It's Anthony Edwards and Bradley
Right.
Beal would be number 2 because they have a great team. They have a lot of guys, but nobody that's sort of that second name on the marquee. Beal could be that. So that's an interesting one. We'll have to keep our eye on that. I want to ask you about Cam Whitmore, though. He's a guy we've talked about a lot with Houston just because he's been such an interesting player, but he got traded to Washington, legs for 2 second-round picks. I think this is really exciting for the Washington Wizards because what do you have to lose? You're getting a really talented guy who has an enormous amount of upside, and all it cost you was 2 second-round picks. But for Houston, this clearly shows that they were just done with him, that they did not value him and see him as part of the future because they're basically dumping him to get a couple second-round picks. What do you make of this?
This guy is so intriguing to me because the talent is obviously there. The opportunity has not been in Houston. And they've come to the conclusion he's not going to break through there. Look, they had this massive offseason. They've got a lot of new guys coming in. They're trying to win a championship this year. And in looking at their rotation, they're not seeing an opportunity for Cam Whitmore. He's really young. How old is he? Yeah, he's
21. He turns 21 tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, okay, you're right. July 8th. He turns 21 tomorrow. And I've seen enough of this guy in the the brief periods of time he's gotten some regular run where you go, man, this guy is super intriguing with his talent base. Now, look, as we've seen in Washington over the last few years, guys will go to Washington and get an increased opportunity, more shots, more minutes, and you don't really notice it much because you're not watching the Wizards very much. So, but there's an upside to it for a young player like this. For Cam Whitmore, just the opportunity to go out there and maybe he's a starter, maybe he's the first guy off the bench, whatever, but he's playing every night. And when he's out there, he's allowed to go be himself and try to break through and add things to his game. And I think that would be a tremendous opportunity for him. So I agree. And you know how I feel about, second round picks. We talk about it all the time. So to give up a couple of those for Cam Whitmore, yeah, that's a win for Washington.
And here's Washington, though. They have a weird roster now because they have a lot of guards. So they have Middleton, Smart, Koulibaly, Dylan Jones, Kaishan George, and Corey Kispert. That's a lot of guards. And now Cam Whitmore. So as much as I like it in theory, like, go to Washington, you're going to get to play a lot of minutes. Some of these guys have to be expendable now. I think maybe Dylan Jones. But, that's the only thing I wonder is who's going to be the odd man out there and what does Washington do? Because you're going to cannibalize one or two of those guys just on depth alone.
Well, that's very true. The other thing I think that's a real concern is just, look, I don't know enough about Cam Whitmore in terms of character, integrity, work ethic, seriousness, professionalism. I don't know enough about that. And to me, if he was exhibiting all of that and they were thrilled with that, but there just wasn't an opportunity, they would have found a way to keep him. They didn't. So maybe some of that stuff is lacking, right? Now you're going to a situation where pretty early in the season, you're not going to be playing for much. And that's what's going to happen there. By mid-December, right now, it becomes one of these situations where it becomes a little bit more about going out there and showing out. And so, yeah, the opportunity will be there. But what does that do for a young player just in terms of his approach to his craft every day? That could be a detriment for Cam Whitmore. But I'm telling you, I'm intrigued by the talent.
Me
And
too.
I want to see more of an opportunity, man. I really do. Just like the guy I talked about, Terrence Shannon Jr., and he was only 1 year in the league, only a rookie. But same thing this year in Minnesota. Like Nickeil Alexander-Walker leaving is going to create an opportunity, I think, for Terrence Shannon Jr. And I think it's there. Now let's see it on a regular night. Now the difference is he's in a winning situation. So 12 minutes a game could be a lot more impactful than playing 27 minutes a night in Washington.
Yeah. I'm also intrigued by him, so I want to watch it. But when I look at Washington's roster, I do wonder if it's going to be the slam dunk I expect it to be. Like, oh, just give him a ton of minutes. He still might have to earn them out there, and I'm curious how Washington navigates that. Lastly, there was some summer league games. This is like, there's the real, I'll call it the real summer league, which happens in Vegas starting on Thursday night. You can catch Tim Legler calling the action for Cooper Flagg's debut on ESPN. But there's these other summer leagues legs that kind of sneak in the weekend before it happened. So we had some play. VJ Edgecombe and the 76ers took on Ace Bailey and Utah Jazz, and he dominated. First of all, my note, he wears number 77. Very odd for his style of player because he's super quick, lightning quick, very smooth athlete. But number 77 is a little strange for me.
Yeah, same. Same. It caught me off guard as well. I was excited to see him because it was interesting the way the draft played out, because there was a lot of talk about Ace Bailey with that pick. Ace Bailey refused to work out, didn't want to go meet with the Sixers. I don't know if they would have gone Ace Bailey if he met with them or not, but it created this opening to have increased interest in Edgecombe. And that's where they went. And they're going to ultimately, in my opinion, they're going to love that they ended up with this pick, because
he looks so good.
Look, it's summer league. I mean, you saw, listen, it's like you said, it's almost like it's not even Vegas yet. So it's almost like a preseason game. Like, if there is such a thing, right? That's kind of what this is.
Yeah.
But still, I love the fact that these guys that are these high picks, it's wild because you walk into the locker room for these summer leagues, and like you walk in and you're like the guy in the locker room, even though all of you are trying to either get your first taste of the NBA, or in some cases, it's like a second year guy that they, didn't play a lot. They want to see further development, or maybe it's a guy from Europe. He's 27. He hasn't, but everybody's in the same boat. Nobody's proven themselves in this league yet. And yet you walk in and you're like the guy because you're the top pick. And he carried himself like that in his first game. It was total command, absolute, complete, relaxed look to his game. Everything he did, he really surprised me, because the knock was, the perimeter shooting is going to be streaky, maybe the best athlete in the draft. They're going to be explosive. You saw Russell Westbrook comparisons with his athletic ability and relentlessness. And we saw some of that in this first game. But the other thing, Adam, I saw was a mid-range shot. I saw a three-point shot. The release looked good. I also saw him really just manipulating the ball back and forth on ball screen, like setting his guy up to come off the screen the way he wanted to, the direction he wanted to get what he wanted. He looked so comfortable. And to me, that's a great sign, because I think that's just innate. This dude believes in himself, and I think there's a lot more there offensively than anybody was giving him credit for coming into the draft, and he is going to identify with the Philadelphia fan base. I predict he's going to become very popular very quickly, because all accounts of this guy, he wants it. He works hard. He's got that look in his eye. He's tough. And now if you got some polish to your game as well, you're not just an athlete, you've got a chance to grow, man. And I think they're going to love this pick.
I think they're going to love it too. I mean, it's just one game. And as you mentioned, it's the pre summer league, but nonetheless, he looked like an incredible athlete. That's the number one thing that stood out to me. It wasn't just that he is athletic. We see athletic guys all the time. He's a smooth athlete, a la a Zach LaVine, a la an Anthony Edwards, guys that are both explosive, but at the same time, just look like they're floating. And then his jumper looked great to me. The one thing I was wondering, you're the shot doctor, the shot expert here. He has kind of a natural fadeaway to his shot. Yeah. And I think superstar players have that often because they're constantly getting to spots where they fade away. He had a couple like catch and shoots where he was fading a little bit. And I thought that was a little bit interesting. I wonder if you noticed it too.
I love that you picked up on that, because I did notice that as well. And it's one thing to do it off the dribble, because that is a natural lean back that a lot of scorers in the league have, because you're shooting a lot of contested shots. And so it's another way to create separation at the end of your shot. But to do it on just a catch and shoot when you've got time to like load it up, no, that's something that you're right. That's something that he's going to have to work on. And look, every one of these teams now employs shooting coaches on a full staff, making good money. So that's their issue to work that out. But you're right. On the ones where you got more time, just spotted up playing off of Maxey or Paul George or Embiid, you got more time. You want to step into those to get your momentum going forward. There's no reason to be leaning back and fading on a catch and shoot, particularly if you've got some space there.
The last guy we're going to talk about, because there's a lot of Summer League next week, later on in this week, and then next week we'll talk a lot about what we see. I think you can get in trouble overreacting, especially after one or two games. But one guy that I think is at least worth noting is that Dalton Knecht, second-year player, had a very good start to the year and then has kind of tailed off since, kind of falls out of the rotation, has a rough go. You go into your second year, he had 4 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and 4 turnovers in his last game, following up 10 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 of 13 shooting in his first game. He's now 0 of 9 from 3. It's meaningful. Look, bad Summer League games happen. I don't think it means a whole lot, except the Lakers are so thin. They don't have that many guys. Dalton Knecht's actually important to their chances this year, certainly in the regular season, but probably in the playoffs. So do you think it's meaningful that he has now struggled to score, has more turnovers than assists, and has just been a non-impact guy in 2 Summer League games?
Not after 2 games, but I will tell you this. I've seen it time and time again. When you're that guy that's asked to go play in year 2, Summer League, I'm telling you, the coaching staff, they're all there, including especially, most importantly, JJ Redick. You expect that guy to walk on the floor and be one of the best players out there. Just from the simple fact that you got an 82-game season under your belt, being around what that is on a daily basis, having moments of success, which Dalton Knecht did his rookie year. He had some hot stretches in there in a very up and down year, including getting traded at one point and then getting sent back to LA afterwards because the trade got rescinded. That had to be a really jolting experience for a young player. Hard enough to get traded when you're playing for the Lakers, playing with LeBron James. Next thing you know, you're in Charlotte. Like, what happened? And then, oh, no, I'm sorry. No, you're not. You got to go back to the Lakers, and you're going to play there now. And you're thinking, well, they didn't want me, and now it's a weird vibe emotionally for you. So, but he also, within that, Adam, he had moments where he lit it up. And he'd go through these little stretches, 2-3 games at a time, man. He would light it up and look like a major piece going forward. So getting a taste of that compared to other guys in the locker room in a summer league that haven't tasted any of that, you're expected to just be so confident and have things go so well for you that when it doesn't, if this continues and he has 2 or 3 more games like this, I'm telling you, man, it can be something psychologically for the coaching staff where they start to wonder like what he's made up of. So I'm not predicting that. I think the guy has talent. I think he's going to be a player in this league. But I know that they were frustrated with him last year in LA for a variety of reasons. They weren't sure about if he was tough enough. They weren't sure about necessarily his basketball IQ. And so if you come now in year 2 and you're struggling against guys that 95% of the guys he's going to play against over the next 3 weeks will not be in the NBA next year.
Yeah.
You have to dominate those guys. If he doesn't, it's sort of, I'm not saying it raises the red flag, but somebody's going over and they're getting the red flag out and they're thinking about putting it on that pole and raising it. That's all I'm saying. You start to get some warning signs. So let's hope that he snaps out of it and he has some big games. Assuming he's going to play in Vegas as well.
The other thing about Dalton Knecht, all those points that you just said are 100% correct. There is a confidence thing with any player, but Dalton Knecht's a unique story because he had a meteoric rise. 5 years ago, he wasn't even known in Colorado. This isn't a guy that was like a blue chip number 1 guy. He really quickly grew into this great player, goes to Tennessee, has a breakout, and then becomes this lottery pick or this first round pick. But he's not a guy that has been at the top for long. And I just wonder if those guys are a little more susceptible to confidence fluctuations, because again, like you had this great couple years, all of a sudden you're back down and you're struggling. I that's just something I think about with him. If his confidence crashes, does his whole upside crash with it? we'll have to follow that story as it happens. All right, we have one super chat here, James. And it comes from our guy, Psycho Blue. He says, if Beal goes, there will be trouble. But if he stays, there will be double. So you got to let Matt know, Matt being Ishbia, should I remain or should I go? Suns get below the first apron with a buyout and dead cap rules help out too. Bradley Beal to the Clippers. I mean, he is right that the Suns are in such a corner. They're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. The only thing I'll say is, are the Suns going anywhere this year, Legs? And if not, don't you just eat one more year and then that stretch, you buy out and stretch becomes a lot smaller?
Yeah. And look, I think now because of what happened with Lillard, I think nobody's, that when the Lillard thing came down, everybody was in a state of shock. So each of these going forward will be less of that. So I think, honestly, so if there's an opportunity to do it, based on the fact that there's no expectations for the Suns this year, and you have an opportunity to create just some financial flexibility for yourself while Devin Booker is still there and in his prime, I think you do it. It's shocking. It's shocking that these kind of numbers just get thrown around and these checks get cut and nobody thinks twice of it anymore. It blows my mind, but there are new parameters in this league and things that you have to consider strongly in trying to create financial flexibility. That might be their only move.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Cue that outro music there, James. There was one other super chat. I'll summarize it. I don't want to put you in a weird spot. I'll summarize it. Very happy that ESPN is letting you do play-by-plays or color commentary. So I'll summarize it to say that.
Yeah, it's fun working with my boy Mark Jones. I'm looking forward to it, man. First look at Cooper Flagg. First look at Dylan Harper. And my first look at Edgecombe, even though he played the other night, it'll be his first game in Vegas as well. So, yeah, I got some good ones.
It should be great. We're back this weekend, probably Friday or Saturday. We'll have like a mini pod version. Since Legs has a courtside seat to all these top prospects, we'll talk about that. I'll probably get Mark Stein live from Vegas as well, where we'll talk about some of the different deals that are happening. And I suspect there will be another big deal by the time we do between now and the time we do our next show. Stay locked to this channel. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit that like button for us on the way out. We'll see you in a couple days.
Silly like the mayor.